He walked into his house. What did he find? His wife. Yes, thank you so much, 2 people listening. And what did he find about his wife? What was happening? She had overdosed on sleeping pills. How many pills did she end up taking? Y'all remember? The whole bottle. Yes, someone said it over here. And how many pills were in that bottle? 30 pills were in that bottle. 30 sleeping tablets. That's what we picked up yesterday. Now tell me, after you apparently are overdosed, y'all want to know the first step you are supposed to take? Anyone know? Hopefully you don't. I mean, that's something that's a really niche thing. It's a dark thing. You pump your stomach. You get everything out that was inside of your stomach.
How do you pump your stomach?
How do you pump your stomach? Very good question. We're actually going to see how inside of our story, how that happens, at least in a very futuristic sense. But we still do the same basic thing today. Basically, you can pump your stomach in 2 ways. The natural way, or if you don't have a machine, is to make yourself throw up. That's how you do that. The more unnatural way, where we do it when it comes to technology, is up here on the board. So yesterday, he finds his wife. She is overdosed. She is dying on the floor. He screams. Airplanes fly over his house at that point, and so he can't even hear himself scream because these jet bombers over his house. So that's our first kind of relation that there might be a war happening in the background of the story. And he immediately reaches for the phone and calls the emergency hospital. That's what we're picking up now today in our story. They had this machine. They had 2 machines, really. One of them, it's going to be our first machine here. I'm not going to use red. This is the first note I would suggest you take. One of them, the first machine, slid down into your stomach like a black cobra down an echoing well, looking for all the old water and the old time gathered there. Kind of disgusting feel there. And you're supposed to feel like, ugh, that was bad. On the very beginning of the book entirely, in the very beginning of the story, we have this idea of a water hose that is like a giant snake, right? And instead of water, it's spitting out kerosene gas. We have this same connection here. We have one of them slid down into your stomach like a black cobra down an echoing well. So this is going to be a large hose. That's what it is. It's a hose that gets thrown down into your throat, down to your stomach. Ugh. It drank up the green matter that flowed to the top in a slow boil. Did it drink of the darkness? Did it suck out all the poisons accumulated with the years? It fed in silence with an occasional sound of inner suffocation and blind searching. All right? Nasty idea here. Basically, this large hose goes down into your stomach and sucks out everything inside. Y'all have all done it wherever you've been like drinking something from a straw and you run out of things to drink, so it makes that sucking noise. That's what you have here, that inner suffocation and blind searching noise. The snake, the large hose, is sucking out the pills. We can just say the pills. This is still a horrible act where you've had this giant hose stuffed down into your stomach and it's sucking things out. To make things a little bit worse, it had an eye. The impersonal operator of the machine could, by wearing a special optical helmet, gaze into the soul of the person whom he was pumping out. So basically it had a camera. It's an eye attachment. It had an eye, it's going to be a camera. Camera attachment. What did the eye see? He did not say. The impersonal operator did not say. He saw but did not see what the eye saw. The entire operation was not unlike the digging of a trench in one's yard. The woman on the bed was no more than a hard stratum of marble they had reached. Go on anyway, shove the board down, slush up the emptiness, if such a thing could be brought out in the throb of the suction snake. The operator stood smoking a cigarette. The other machine was working too. How many of y'all have gone to the hospital before? Please just visited, say the hospital. Not even gone for yourself. Quite a few of you, okay? Last time you walked into the hospital, did you see the doctors sitting there talking to patients smoking? Don't go to that doctor again if you do, okay? Don't. It would be horrible if you walked in and a doctor himself was smoking as he's talking to a patient. That's horrible. This operator, though, stood there smoking a cigarette while this woman is getting her stomach pumped in front of him. He's just like, oh, all right. What is he? Oh, yeah, okay. Just sitting there. It's horrible. It's disgusting. It's very impersonal here. He's going to be a very selfish character, just like everyone else in the story. In this society, everyone is very impersonal and very selfish with what they find for themselves. Next machine, down here. The other machine was operated by an equally impersonal fellow in non-stainable reddish-brown overalls. Why is that important, the color of his overalls? Anyone know? Can anyone think, use your imaginations to answer that? What is also reddish-brown?
Blood.
Sorry?
Blood.
Blood, yes. Once blood dries, it goes from that deep, dark red to a reddish-brown. And what are these guys wearing? Overalls that are reddish-brown. Why? In case blood starts splattering all over them, they don't even have to wash. It just dries on them just fine. Kind of disgusting here. It showcases, too, that they are not careful by any means. They don't tend to be very careful at all. This machine, so this second machine here, would anyone like something from the break cart? Go ahead, yeah. We're going to keep going, but y'all go ahead. The second machine pumped all the blood from the body and replaced it with fresh blood and serum. That's our second machine. This is a pretty normal process, actually. We have this today. We have blood transfusion devices just fine. And it's pretty normal. Nothing too difficult about that one. What gets really creepy, though, is our next paragraph here where it says, "Gotta clean them out both ways," said the operator, standing over the silent woman. "No use getting the stomach if you don't clean the blood. I leave that stuff in the blood, and the blood hits the brain like a mallet. Bang a couple thousand times, the brain just gives up, just quits." What if I had my wife right here in front of me, like close to death, and a doctor came by and said, well, she might die for this and this and this and that. That sucks for you. I'd be so angry right here. This is showcasing just how impersonal, as it said in the very top, that these operators are. Personal. You could also say uncaring. Rude.
I was thinking detached.
Detached, just another good one, yeah. Detached. They don't care. Why? Because it doesn't really affect them. It's just a job for them. There's also their language, how they speak, showcases also in some way, not all the time, but in some way also how they think and their intelligence level. Instead of talking about these things in a very medical way, in a very scientific way, instead it's just leave that stuff in the blood and the blood hits the brain like a mallet. Bang a couple thousand times and the brain just gives up, just quits. There's no actual scientific thought there, so maybe they are detached, they don't care, this is normal for them. That's the crazy part. So obviously this is going to bother Montag, since that's his wife there, who he should probably love, on the floor, or on their bed, nearly close to death, being operated on. "Stop it," said Montag. "I was just saying," said the operator. "Are you done?" said Montag. They shut the machines up tight. "We're done." His anger did not even touch them. That showcasing again how uncaring, detached they are. I love that word now. I'm going to be using it for here on out. Attached.
I don't have
caring.
property rights to it.
They stood with the cigarette smoke curling round their noses and into their eyes, without even making them blink or squint. That's $50. First, why don't you tell me if she'll be all right? Sure, she'll be okay. We got all the mean stuff right in our suitcase here. They can't get her now. As I said, you take out the old and put in the new, and you're okay. Neither of you is an MD. Why didn't they send an MD from emergency? What is an MD? Anyone know? Yes, a doctor. A medical doctor. All right? In case you didn't know that. That's going to be a medical doctor. We don't even need to write that out, really. But it's a medical doctor. Why didn't they send an actual doctor here? Why are these two schmoes who are in coveralls or overalls doing this now? Why is there not a doctor here? Hell, said the operator's cigarette moved on his lips. We get these cases 9 or 10 a night. Got so many starting a few years ago, we had the special machines built. With the optical lens, of course, that was new. The rest is ancient. You don't need an MD case like this. All you need is 2 handymen. Clean up the problem in half an hour. Look, he started for the door. We gotta go. Just had another call on the old ear thimble. 10 blocks from here. Someone else just jumped off the cap of a pillbox. Call if you need us again. Keep her quiet. We got a contraceptive in her. Well, she'll wake up hungry. So long. And that's it. This woman just OD'd in her house. She had more than likely been stuck in her house, no one knowing that she's OD'd for quite some time. He called the emergency hospital. No one shows up besides 2 handymen. That's it. All they do is pump her stomach and then put new blood in her. That's it. She's good. Got all the mean stuff here. Now it's out. They don't care. Now they have to go to another one because they got another call that someone else did the same exact thing. This is telling us a lot about their society and how society is. It's uncaring. It's detached. It is selfish and cold. And the men with the cigarettes in their straight line mouths, the men with the eyes of puff adders, or puff adders are going to be a type of snake. Yeah, there's a lot of snake symbology in here, symbols in here. Snakes are not like other animals. Does anyone actually own a snake? Anyone? Oh, I always have like what you do. I always have 1 or 2 students who usually do, and snakes are interesting creatures, but snakes are not like most other animals. They're not like dogs and cats and stuff. Dogs and cats, they can show their affection. Generally speaking, you can see their affection in their eyes. Snakes, you don't really get to see their affection for you. I don't disagree with me too much on that one. But you don't. They just, to me, they always look evil. They always like they're ready to kill you if they could, type thing. Personally, that's how I always think. That's what's happening here. They're that cold, detached predator type of eye. That's what these guys have. They don't care. They took up their load of machine and tube, their case of liquid melancholy, her blood and stuff that was in the basically his hands now in his briefcase, and the slow dark sludge of the nameless stuff, and strolled out the door. Mondag sank down into a chair and looked at this woman. Her eyes were closed now, gently, and he put out his hand to feel the warmness of breath on his palm. Remember, not his wife, this woman. Mildred, he said at last. Next page. So he said her name, but that's the last time he says her name for quite some time. Now he's going to keep thinking. Now remember yesterday, he has an issue with thinking. The more he thinks, the worse it gets for him. The more that he actually starts realizing how horrible life is. So thinking's always a bad thing for him to do because it makes him more human. It doesn't agree with the society that he lives in. In fact, he even said Clarice thought too much. There are too many of us, he thought. There are billions of us, and that's too many. Nobody knows anyone. Strangers come and violate you. Strangers come and cut your heart out. Strangers come and take your blood. Good God, who were those men? I never saw them before in my life. Half an hour passed. So now we know it's roughly maybe around 2:30-ish. The bloodstream in this woman was new, and it seemed to have done a new thing to her. Her cheeks were very pink, and her lips were very fresh and full of color, and they looked soft and relaxed. Someone else's blood there. If only someone else's flesh and brain and memory. If only they could have taken her mind along to the dry cleaners and emptied the pockets and steamed and cleansed it and reblocked it and brought it back in the morning. If only. So here we actually have, it looks like someone else completely. We know the half hour passed, so this is around 2:30 p.m. Well, a.m. I guess that would be. a.m. We know that this also, look at this description of her. The bloodstream of this woman was new, and it seemed to have done a new thing in her. Her cheeks were very pink, and her lips were very fresh and full of color. All this description here, it looks like a completely new woman. Especially if we compared it to the death idea that she had earlier. She looked like a corpse earlier. So I'm going to put a / dead body before. Before she was described as barely breathing. She said it barely even, her breath would barely even move a feather. It was so shallow. Her eyes were basically shooting just straight forward at the ceiling because she was laying on the ground, or laying on her bed. And they looked like steel cables were dragging her eyeballs upwards. So her eyes were unmoving and unfeeling. But now we have this completely different one. We have her very pink of her lips. Her flesh is full of color. Her lips look soft and relaxed. Because it's someone else's blood there. It's no longer her in there, it's someone else. That's what he's saying. He says, if only they could increase this. If only someone else's flesh and brain and memory. If only they could have taken her mind along to the dry cleaners and emptied the pockets and steamed and cleansed it and reblocked it and brought it back in the morning. If only it was someone else. I'll say if only it was someone else there. Instead of his wife, if only it was someone else. This tells us their relationship a lot. That obviously their relationship is strained and stressed. We talked yesterday about how Mildred, apparently for 2 years, had been listening to her seashells, her headphones, if you remember from yesterday, and they don't talk almost anymore. They don't have real conversation at least. So he feels detached and very, very distant from his wife here. He got up and put back the curtains and pulled back the curtains, I'm sure, and opened the windows wide to let the night air in. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. Was it only an hour ago Clarice McClellan in the street and him coming in the dark room and his foot kicking the little crystal bottle? Only an hour, but the world had melted down and sprung up in a new and colorless form. Looks like I was actually wrong about the 2:30, y'all. My apologies. You can make fun of me if you wish. But it had been not very long at all. 1 hour had passed before he got home, and his whole life had just turned around completely. Laughter blew across the moon-colored lawn from the house of Clarice and her father and mother and the uncle, who smiled so quietly and so earnestly. Above all, their laughter was relaxed and hearty and not forced in any way, coming from the house that was so brightly lit this late at night, while all the other houses were kept to themselves in darkness. Montag heard the voices talking, giving, talking, weaving, reweaving their hypnotic web. Have you ever seen a group of people talk and they seem so comfortable around each other and you're kind of like jealous? Like, man, I wish I could be part of that group for a little bit. They seem kind of cool. That's what's happening here. Plus, we have a really awesome juxtaposition of this house. Laughter blew in from across the lawn. Here you go. And the house was so brightly lit. The house that was so brightly lit, compared to all the other houses were kept to themselves in darkness. This is a really great use of juxtaposition. Love that word, juxtaposition. It's a fun word to say. Montag moved out through the French windows and crossed the lawn without even thinking of it. He stood outside the talking house in the shadows, thinking he might even tap on the door and whisper, "Let me come in. I won't say anything. I just want to listen. What is it you're saying?" So he's had a traumatic night, so traumatic that he's even willing to be a little bit creepy and go stalk outside someone's house.
Just walked outside and left the wife laying there.
Yep, his wife's still sitting there in their bedroom. He walks outside, crosses the street, and goes outside of this neighbor's house, whose lights are still on. But instead, he stood there very cold, his face a mask of ice, listening to a man's voice, the uncle, moving along at an easy pace. So here we actually have the uncle speaking, that Clarice talked about. The uncle speaks. You'll notice today we don't have as many notes as we're taking as we get along. So this is the uncle speaking. And these are the things that Clarice believes, because her uncle, if he talks about it, then she usually believes it. Or talks about it later. Well, after all, this is the age of the disposable tissue. Blow your nose on a person, wad them, flush them away, reach for another. Blow, wad, flush. Everyone using everyone else's coattails. How are you supposed to root for the home team when you don't even have a program or know the names? For that matter, what color jerseys are they wearing as they trot out to the field? That's very true, and plus we can see this in connection with the two men, the handymen who came in. This directly closely relates to those handymen, because it's almost like they don't care about anyone here. They are using Mildred like a tissue. They came in, did their job, threw her away. Came in, did their job, threw her away. Next person down the line. They don't care. They treat people like tissues. Use them and throw them away. Montag moved to his own house, left the window wide, checked Mildred, tucked the covers about her carefully, and then lay down with the moonlight on his cheekbones, and on the frowning ridges in his brow. And then lay down with the moonlight on his cheekbones and on the frowning ridges in his brow, where the moonlight distilled in each eye to form a silver cataract there. We're going to see here that this is not just flowery language, it's also describing what's happening to him right now. Because of this night, how impactful it is. Y'all awake? Y'all awake? Keep your eyes open. If you need to stand up, do so. This is awesome writing here. Well, see there, this silver cataract that's on his eye is in fact water building up on his eyeball. He's about to start crying, which is understandable with the night that he's had. Completely understandable. This one drop of rain, it's not raining inside, this is him crying. Crying makes your thoughts kind of go crazy in some ways. Personally, at least it has for me. You can't control where your thoughts go. Your thoughts might speed up and slow down until you finish your crying fest or whatever you need to. This is actually exemplified in the language the author uses. It's an amazing piece. This paragraph right here, I think, is one of the best well-written parts of literature I've ever seen. Out of all the literature I've seen, I love this because it showcases the idea of your thoughts in crying. It speeds up and slows down the tempo as you read. It's just great. It's awesome. So let's read this. It's slow at first, then speeds up, and then slows down again, just with the language and the cadence of the words. One drop of rain, Clarice. Another drop, Mildred. A third, the uncle. A fourth, the fire tonight. 1, Clarice. 2, Mildred. 3, uncle. 4, fire. 1, Mildred. 2, Clarice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Clarissa, Mildred, uncle, fire. Sleeping tablets, men, disposable tissue. Coattails, blow, wad, flush. Clarice, Mildred, uncle, fire. Tablets, tissues, blow, wad, flush. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Rain, the storm, the uncle laughing. Thunder falling downstairs. The whole world pouring down. The fire gushing up in a volcano, all rushing on down around in a spouting roar and rivering stream toward morning. Notice that that's just a beautiful use of language itself, the literal cadence of words. whatever you say actually has a cadence to it. You can say things quickly, but some things you can't really. Onomatopoeia. It's a great word, but it's a slow word. You can't really, even saying it fast, you still have a lot of it. And that's what he uses here, that cadence, those syllables, to create the idea of crying. Starts off slow, then builds up to this crescendo, and finally slows down again. I don't know anything anymore, he said, and let a sleep lozenge dissolve on his tongue. Next paragraph, completely next morning, ladies and gents. Y'all don't need to ask you to start standing up. Jaden, don't need to start asking you to stand up. And let's make sure our eyes are open, all right? But you keep your head up. John, you awake? Mr. Slaughter, you awake? Okay. Making sure, ladies and gents, if you cannot even control yourself, that's a big issue. Stay focused. We're only going to be reading for another 10 minutes, 15 minutes at most. At 9 in the morning, Mildred's bed was empty. Montag got up quickly, his heart pumping, and ran down the hall and stopped at the kitchen door. Toast popped out of the silver toaster, was seized by a spidery metal hand that drenched it with melted butter. Mildred watched the toast delivered to her plate. She had both ears plugged with electronic bees that were humming the hour away. What are the electronic bees? The headphones, yes. The headphones. They call them in the story seashells. We talked about that yesterday. She looked up suddenly, saw him, and nodded. You all right? He asked. She was an expert at lip reading, so can she actually hear what he's saying? No. Some of y'all, when you have your headphones in, you have your music turned up, can you actually hear other people? Not really. So, she was lip reading. She was an expert at lip reading. From 10 years of apprenticeship at Seashell Ear Thimbles, because she's always had these headphones in. She nodded again. She sent the toaster clicking away at another piece of bread. Montag sat down. His wife said, I don't know why I should be so hungry. We know why, correct? Because she just OD'd. I'm hungry. Last night, he began. Didn't sleep well. Feel terrible, she said. God, I'm hungry. I can't figure it. Last night, he said again. She washed his lips casually. What about last night? Well, don't you remember? What? Did we have a wild party or something? Feel like I have a hangover. God, I'm hungry. Who was here? So, does she know or remember that she has overdosed? No, she has not. She does not remember this at all. This is insane for her. A few people, he said. Was this a lie? Think about it. Was that a lie? Technically, no. This was not a lie. It is kind of it's not a complete truth. It's like a half lie, half truth here. But it's not really a lie because there were at least two guys there with a handyman. Well, that's what I thought. She chewed her toast. Sore stomach, but I'm hungry as all get out. Hope I didn't do anything foolish at the party. No, just nearly died. No, he said quietly. The toaster spidered out a piece of buttered bread for him. He held it in his hand, feeling grateful. You don't look so hot yourself, said his wife. This is one of the reasons why I really hate this woman, all right? She is ridiculous to the extreme, and you're going to learn to hate her too as the story progresses, all right? Not her actions. Her actions before the sleeping tablets could be explained away. I mean, people get sad all the time, depressed. I get that. But how she acts towards him, you're going to start hating her. In the late afternoon, it rained, and the entire world was dark gray. He stood in the hall of his house, putting on his badge with the orange salamander burning across it. He stood looking up at the air conditioning vent in the hall for a long time. Remember, he looked at that earlier in the very beginning, our first day's reading, just about, or second day's reading. After talking to Clarice, he said something was watching him outside of that, peering at him. His wife in the TV parlor paused long enough from reading her script to glance up. Hey, she said, the man's thinking. Oh, that's an issue for him. Yes, he said. I wanted to talk to you. He paused. You took all the pills in your bottle last night. Oh, I wouldn't do that, she said, surprised. The bottle was empty. I wouldn't do a thing like that. Why would I do a thing like that? She asked. Well, maybe you took 2 pills and forgot, and took 2 more and forgot again, and took 2 more and were so dopey you kept right on until you had 30 or 40 of them in you. Heck, she said, what would I want to go and do a silly thing like that for? I don't know, he said. She was quite obviously waiting for him to go. I didn't do that, she said. Never in a billion years. Notice here that this is an issue. I have a particular issue with this. That she was quite obviously waiting for him to go. That right there rubs me a little bit the wrong way. Because remember, this is her wife, his wife. His wife does not want him near her. That's not a usual thing for a husband and wife, how a husband and wife should act. All right, if you say so, he said. That's what the lady said. She turned back to her script. What's on this afternoon? He asked tiredly. She didn't look up from her script again. Well, this is a play. It comes on the wall-to-wall circuit in 10 minutes. They mailed me my part this morning. I sent in some box tops. They write the script with 1 part missing. It's a new idea. The homemaker, that's me, is the missing part. When it comes time for the missing lines, they all look at me out of the 3 walls. And I say the lines, here for instance. The man says, what do you think of that? Of this whole idea, Helen. And he looks at me sitting here center stage and see, and I say, she paused and ran her finger under a line in the script. I think that's fine. And then they go on with the play until he says, do you agree with that, Helen? And I say, I sure do. Isn't that fun, guy? Does that actually sound like fun? Not really. It sounds kind of boring and stupid. You say 2 lines in a play, great. But this does showcase to us a couple ideas. For one, the TVs. TV is going to be really important in this book. How many of y'all like TV? Heck, sometimes it's fun just to watch TV, play video games on TV, things like that. These TVs are massive. In fact, they call them TV walls. So the whole wall is a TV, and they have 3 of them around a room. That's pretty impressive. That'd be kind of cool. Try watching a basketball game or a football game with 3 TV walls next to you. That'd be pretty neat. All right.
It's like sitting in Applebee's when they've got 6 of them going around.
Right. Well, I mean, these days actually they do have TVs, really massive ones that are the size of walls. Yeah. Like about 5 years ago or so, they had 8K televisions that they were just then producing, and they had them really huge. Like they were like 80 by 80. They were massive. But we can do this today in real life, yes. Now, so that's something that, another sense of futurism that we talked about yesterday. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We don't really do it like this, though. He stood in the hall looking at her. It's sure fun, she said. What's the play about? I just told you. There are these people named Bob and Ruth and Helen. Is that really a story? No, man, that's annoying and that's nothing. There's no plot to this. Oh, it's really fun. It'll be even more fun when we can afford to have the 4th wall installed. How long do you figure before we save up and get the 4th wall torn out and a 4th wall TV put in? It's only $2,000. Does that sound like a lot? $2,000. In today's day and age, not a whole lot. What's up? It does sound like a lot. Yeah, we're fixing to finish this. I'll let you go. Okay. $2,000 doesn't sound like a whole lot, but when it comes to how much he is paid, it becomes a massive amount. That's 1/3 of my yearly pay. So how much does he get paid a year? Math person, yes, $6,000 a year. That's all he makes. $6,000. Okay, that's how much money he makes per year, which is an insanely low amount of money, you would think. Now, this was written back in the 50s, so you have to account for that one. That probably wasn't as bad back then. I'm not sure. Do you know? Was that a lot of money back then?
2,000, you mean in 1953 when you wrote it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You think that would be enough? Probably.
You consider back then a car was maybe $700 or $800.
True. That's a good idea to keep in mind there. But let's connect this to today's type of money. Personally, since I'm also a government worker, just like Montag is in the story, you can look it up online how much I make. Per year, they say on paper that I make about $43,000 a year. That's what they say. I don't actually get that much because taxes and whatnot. But if we connected this, a third of my pay would be roughly now, around $14,000 to $15,000. That's how much it is to buy a TV wall, which sounds just about right, almost. About how much it would be to get a TV the size of a whole wall. That's how much money. And she thinks, oh, how long is it going to take to save up that $15,000? Should be a long time. It gets worse, though. It's only $2,000, she replied. And I should think you'd consider me sometimes. What did he just do last night to save her? Right? Come on. Mm-hmm. If we had a fourth wall, why, it'd be just like this room wasn't ours at all. But all kinds of exotic people's rooms. We could do without a few things. We're already doing without a few things to pay for the third wall. It was put in only 2 months ago, remember? He put in the third wall for her only 2 months ago, and she's already forgotten about it. Is that all it was? Here, I'll draw the arrow down. Is that all it was? She's not looking at him for a long moment. Well, goodbye, dear. That's it. She has forgotten. She has forgotten when even he helped. He last did something for her. Goodness gracious. For her. Goodness gracious. She has forgotten when he last did something for her. Just 2 months ago. That's it. But she's forgotten. It's not in the recent memory for her. This shows you how weak her attention span is. Something we talked about last week. Oh, goodbye, he said. He stopped and turned around. Does it have a happy ending? I haven't read that far. He walked over, read the last page, nodded, folded the script, and handed it back to her. He walked out of the house into the rain. And that's where we're ending for today, ladies and gents, with our reading. You'll notice today I did a few less annotations as we went. It's a little bit easier, this section, to read and follow and understand. We definitely could annotate it more. But I want to make sure that you have enough time to finish the work online. So online today, you have a good little bit of work when it comes to questions. There are going to be 7 questions about the reading so far from Monday, Tuesday, and today. And you need to make sure that you are backing up each of your answers with textual evidence. We're going to look at that just briefly together as well. But these 7 questions, they should already be open. I'll make sure they are, though. You can go ahead and begin on them. And that will be it for the day. All right?